Welcome back, everyone, to 5-5 Sports Pod. Today we'll be talking about NFL as we just a few weeks away from the playoffs, college football as well, conference championships coming up this weekend. So we'll be discussing that on this week's episode. I'm your host, Spencer Schultz. Here with me, Steph Stock and A. Hick. Stock, how's it going? Big Mike.
I'm good. So,
A. Hick, how's it going?
I'm doing all right.
Good. We got week 13 of the NFL season already. We say it every year, but it always flies by. Just if you do fantasy, just 2 more weeks left in the regular season for many of you. Stock on the outside looking in at the moment.
yeah,
Might come
back-to-back
down to-
losses has killed me.
Might come down to our week 14 matchup. So maybe we'll have to do a special edition pod next week, Stock. But let's get into college football. Let's start off with that. Got the college football playoff rankings. I think the top 4 is pretty much non-debatable at this point. You've got Georgia 1, Michigan 2, TCU 3, and USC 4, and then Ohio State 5, which I don't think is arguable. After that, I think is when you start to get some debate in. Alabama at 6. The committee doing their hardest to try and sneak them back in any way possible. So let's just start with that, Steph. Any comments on the top 25 playoff rankings? What do you think heading into championship weekend?
I think it's pretty straightforward. If TCU and USC win, that's our 4. Georgia and Michigan can both lose and still get in. I think they're locked. I think obviously a loss to either of the other 2 or Ohio State's in. The interesting one to me is if they both lose, I'm talking about USC and TCU. If they both lose, is there any shot they put a Bama team in? I hope not. I don't think you should get punished. Look, like the debate would then be, is it a 1-loss TCU team or a 2-loss Bama team, right? Because Ohio State would be in. And I personally don't think you should be punished for playing a 13th game. If you go 12-0 and lose, I think you should be locked, unless there's 5 12-0 teams, which isn't the case. I think if you go 12-0 and you lose your 13th game, you should be locked. And so I think TCU should be in no matter what, but I don't think the committee has them in no matter what, if that makes sense.
I agree with that. And I've seen people talking about how in 2014, TCU got punished for having no Big 12 title game, and Ohio State got in over them. Now there is a Big 12 title game, and they could get punished for losing it, even though they're undefeated, because that's just how the committee rolls. Also, in terms of Alabama, there's been a big argument for them that their 2 losses were both came down to the wire, last play of the game, but they also beat Texas by 1 without Ewers when it looked like Texas was going to win that one. And also, if you if you win 2 games on the last play of the game, no one ever really says oh, they only won 2 games on the last play of the game. But when Alabama loses 2 games on the last play of the game, then it's an excuse to to me, a loss is a loss. They lost 2 games. They have 2 losses. I don't think you can be a 2-loss team just based on precedent over the past, it's been nearly a decade. You cannot be a 2-loss team and get in. And at least with the way they've done things in the past. But if they're going to do it for anyone, it's going to be Bama.
Yeah, I think, Steph, logically, I agree. TCU should be in no matter what this weekend. Same with even if Michigan were to miraculously lose to Purdue. I think if USC loses, though, I think I would not have a problem putting Ohio State back in 4th. which according to the committee, I think that's what they would do because they have them 5th right now. I personally think Ohio State is one of the 4 best, but based off of obviously conference championships, them not making it, you got to value that stuff. So TCU and USC over them right now is rightfully so. So I mostly agree with you guys. Yeah, any comments from this past weekend? I mean, that Michigan-Ohio State game, Stock, me and you have talked about it for a few months. We thought Michigan was better. I think the main reason I thought that was J.J. McCarthy is something that I really haven't had in years. Yeah, just that consistently good quarterback, and he outperformed C.J. Stroud, I thought.
Yeah, my reasoning for thinking they were better than Ohio State was not as much about Michigan, more at the fact that Ohio State had seemed to struggle more. I know they had won every single game by 10 plus all season up until this game, but they seemed to be like close late, and then they'd score like 2 touchdowns in the final like 3 minutes to make it look not as close. And really what solidified it for me was Michigan thumped Penn State and Ohio State struggled versus Penn State. So that was really my thinking for Michigan over Ohio State leading into that game.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it took Harbaugh a while, but Michigan is like, they haven't been this good in so long, and they beat Ohio State back-to-back years. And honestly, credit to everyone that's a part of that program for actually giving Harbaugh time, because there was a lot of doubt for a lot of years. And now he's built Michigan back up into being a powerhouse that can absolutely smack Ohio State in the mouth at Buckeye Stadium, which I wasn't going to be surprised if Michigan won, but the fashion in which they did it, I think that was a huge statement for the entire program.
Agreed. Going back to the playoff committee real quick, I think the most intriguing thing that could happen to make the selection show interesting is if TCU loses. If USC wins and TCU loses, I'm really interested to see if they do the TCU or if they go the Ohio State route.
And keep in mind, if TCU loses, they're losing to a top 10 team.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
I think it should be TCU, but I think the committee would go toward Ohio State.
Over who?
Over if USC wins and TCU loses, who gets the last spot? Because then it's Georgia, Michigan, USC for sure, and then it's between TCU and Ohio State for the 4th spot. And I said it should be TCU, but I think the committee goes Ohio State.
If the optics weren't so bad to not have TCU in, they wouldn't have TCU in right now, even undefeated. They'd still have Ohio State in. But they know they can't have an undefeated team outside of the top 4, an undefeated Power 5 team. And so that's why TCU is in right now. But they're waiting for anything from TCU to take them out of it. Because I firmly believe if the optics weren't so bad to do it, they wouldn't even have TCU top 4 right now.
I'm stuck in the middle because I think Ohio State's a better team than TCU, but at the same time, they value making the conference title game, which Ohio State didn't do. So yeah, I think you would have to put TCU in, but at the same time, I think Ohio State's top 4 team.
The best games, I think, is if you get the Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan, USC. Because TCU's beat everybody on their schedule, but I think they get destroyed by Michigan.
My only problem with that argument is that people say that for TCU, but what percentage of college football playoff games have been competitive? Because really, 75% of college football playoff games have been not if it were just a regular season game, they'd be unwatchable by the 3rd quarter. A lot of them. And I agree that TCU is not as good as those other teams. I just think that's for years now the college football playoff has had unwatchable games, and people are acting offended by it now that TCU might make it.
I think the difference this year compared to previous years is there's no dominant team. I really think like there's no like if you go back through the years, right? Like Georgia had an unreal defense last year, wasn't going to be competitive. The year before was that unreal Alabama team with, Devontae Smith.
Emerson Williams.
Yeah, so like that he won the Heisman, like that wasn't close. The year before was LSU with Burrow, Jefferson, Chase. Then it was the Trevor Lawrence years. Then it was like the Watson, Clemson, Bama, where like that was the only competitive games. I don't think there's any team that's like similar to that style, which I think could lead to more competitive games this year.
Yeah, and I think sometimes like everyone just overthinks things too. I mean, TCU just straight up won their games. I mean, they're undefeated. And while
They have the number one strength of schedule as well, according to ESPN's own rankings, even though people on ESPN crap on TCU all the time.
yeah, while the Big 12 doesn't really have many like top schools, they're still, I mean, they still have a lot of good wins like Texas, K-State, Okie State when they were doing well. Like those are all still good wins.
Kansas isn't a free win anymore.
Destroying Oklahoma by 31. Yeah. So looking ahead to the weekend, start off Friday night. As always, Pac-12 championship. USC favored by 2 against Utah. Obviously win, and they're pretty much in for the college football playoff. Who do you guys got in this one?
I've got USC. They almost went to Utah and won. Very questionable reffing in that game. We'll put it that way. That led to a 1-point loss on a 2-point conversion, and that was on the road. Neutral site. USC has all the confidence in the world at this point. They've got the Heisman Trophy winner, I think, in my mind. And I think they get it done and get into the playoff.
Yeah, big moment. I think Caleb Williams is going to rise to the occasion. There's also the revenge storyline, winning one against Utah when it matters most. It's the lone blemish on their record this season. I think USC gets it, and I'm pretty confident in that pick. I think they are such a well-oiled machine on offense. They have the Heisman front runner. I think all signs point to USC.
Yeah, Steph, before the season, we all, I mean, I don't know if it was really a sleeper pick, but we thought USC had a legit shot for making it just due to the conference they're in, which it just so happens the Pac-12 ended up being one of the top conferences this year, and they still made it out 11-1. I think it speaks volumes to the coach Lincoln Riley is. Obviously, did a little bit of cheap recruiting too. Snagging Jordan Addison from Pittsburgh and other players, but impressive nonetheless. They'll also be looking to obviously avenge that loss to Utah, a 1-point loss earlier in the season. So I just don't. I mean, this goes for any sport really, but it's hard to beat a team that's pretty much better than you on paper twice in a season. So I'm going with USC as well. USC's had impressive wins too. UCLA, Notre Dame, and this will just add to that. Moving into Saturday, we got the second closest game, just according to the spread. We got TCU favored by 2.5. We've kind of talked about Vegas, how they love they've loved Texas all year. They've clearly hated TCU all year, like all of the media, all of Vegas. 2.5 for an undefeated team on a neutral site just feels, I don't know, feels a bit low. I'm slamming TCU minus 2.5. They know what they have to play for. Yeah, I'm slamming TCU. What do you guys think?
Yeah, really, I mean, Kansas State is playing for a better bowl game, and it'd be their first time getting to 10 wins since, I don't know, it's probably been close to 2 decades, I would guess. But yeah, TCU, much higher stakes for them. They just keep winning. I mean, Iowa State definitely earned that loss, but they're rolling after a big win over Iowa State. I think that does a lot for them, being able to just get some subs in right before the conference championship and kind of get that easy win. But at the same time, they're battle tested. They were able to end the season with an easy win, take the starters out, but they're also battle tested. Yeah, I think TCU wins it. I'd also hammer that money line.
So you've said TCU like gets disrespected all year, and I completely agree. Another team that's been disrespected all year, in my mind, is the K-State, Kansas State. And Spence, you and I talked about it. Obviously, remember when Baylor was favored over them, which we thought was crazy, and Texas being like 7-point favorites over K-State at K-State, we thought was crazy. Just a bunch of different things. And I'm a bit biased. Look, like my childhood best friend plays for K-State. So I'm a bit biased here, but I think K-State actually does win. They should have beat them the first time. They were winning. They were up 10. Then both Adrian Martinez and Will Howard got hurt. And TCU came back and won. Well, now both are healthy. Will Howard has become the starter. Their offense under Will Howard is scoring like 40 points a game. I actually think K-State wins this game, personally. Look, TCU's on a magical run, so it wouldn't shock me if they won. They're a good team. But I honestly think K-State might be better, which is crazy to say. Look, like Will Howard wasn't the starter early in the year, and I think they're way better with Will Howard than they were with Adrian Martinez. They haven't lost with Will Howard. Haven't really had a close game with Will Howard. So yeah, I like them to pull off the upset and then make Sunday morning really interesting.
I guess time will tell who's correct there. ACC championship, probably the only one I'm intrigued in. Me and Stefan, Aaron probably not. Clemson, North Carolina. Clemson favored by 7.5. North Carolina coming off back-to-back horrible losses. You choke against a measly Georgia Tech team, and then a disgraceful loss in 3 overtimes.
2 overtimes on a missed field goal.
Yeah, 2 against NC State, in-state rival. Yeah, Steph, you got any confidence UNC can pull off an upset?
I think they can. Look, Drake May, DJ is a massive difference, right? Like Carolina clearly has the better quarterback in this game. They have the better weapons too, I think, with Downs and Green. But UNC's defense is so bad that I think it could equal out. I think it'll be a good game, but I don't think UNC wins, unfortunately. I think Clemson wins probably by a touchdown. I'd take UNC to cover, I think, with it being at 7.5, because I think it's a 7-point game.
Yeah, I'm not invested in this like you guys are, but I am curious about it, Spencer. UNC's offense, after being so great all year, has kind of faltered compared to what we're used to seeing, which I think that's an interesting storyline if they're going to be able to bounce back against a Clemson defense. Drake May is the better quarterback in the game. Yeah, I just based on how things are trending for them and the losses they have this year, I just would not feel confident in taking them to beat Clemson at all at this stage in the game. Maybe if this were earlier in the season, but right now I think things are trending downwards for them, which makes Clemson a pretty easy pick.
Yeah, Clemson's coming off a loss, but so both these teams kind of are tumbling into this game. But if there's one thing about UNC defense is it's making horrible quarterbacks look like Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Expect nothing else to happen, nothing different to happen this weekend with DJ Ugalele. Yeah, if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd say yes, because I think the offense can compete with anybody in the country. But I don't know, for whatever reason, the past 2 weeks, offense has faltered. NC State's got a good defense, but Georgia Tech, there's no excuses. Yeah, I just have no confidence heading in. How the offense is playing, yeah.
My hope is Clemson Clemson's ego kind of gets in the way and tries to cover Downs one-on-one, because that's been the difference. Is last 2 weeks Downs has been doubled the entire game, literally every play basically, and Clemson might think they have the talent to go let him go one-on-one, and I think that could hopefully get Carolina's offense back going.
Yeah, and Drake's made his worst mistakes of the season in the last 2 weeks. Like just really unusual mistakes. I think it's just a combination of everything. The receivers have not played well. J.J. Jones and Antoine Green have dropped a lot of passes. Yeah, so I'm not confident. You guys got anything to say about the Big Ten championship between Michigan and Purdue, or the SEC, Georgia, LSU? I don't really have anything. There's 16.5 and 17.5 lines.
The only thing for me would be Purdue's 3-0 under their coach when unranked against a top 3 team in the country. Just kind of a weird stat. I think that he gets his first loss, but it's just kind of a weird stat.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I understand why they do it because it makes geographical sense, but I am tired of these Big Ten championship games. They are so awful. I have zero interest in it. I want Michigan, Ohio State Part 2. And I feel confident that's what everyone else wants too. But instead we get Michigan and Purdue. Last year we got Michigan and Iowa. Iowa was actually a 10-win team last year, but it was just an awful, awful matchup and an awful game. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully when USC and UCLA join, that adds a wrinkle and makes things a little more interesting. But right now, I cannot be bothered to even watch that game, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, even Penn State, Michigan would suffice, but yeah, Georgia. So maybe it might be intriguing to watch at first. I mean, they struggled in the first half against some lesser teams, Georgia Tech and Missouri this season. So maybe that, I don't know. I just don't see anything happening there. Before we transition to the NFL, I guess just give me your top 3 in the Heisman race right now. I guess it would be 2 and 3 with Caleb Williams being 1 for all of us.
Stroud's 2 still. 3. Ooh, wow, a lot of people have fallen off. I'll say Dugan.
I think Dugan has to be top 3 because he's quarterbacking an undefeated team, and if he played for a different school, if he played for a blue blood, he would undoubtedly be possibly even not the Heisman front runner, but I think a lot of people would have him second behind Caleb Williams if he played for a blue blood. So I have the same top 3 as you, Stefan. I think Caleb Williams is obviously the front runner, though.
Yeah, I think I'd probably have the same top 3. If Blake Corum wouldn't have got hurt last week, and he would have rushed for triple digits against Ohio State, kind of in his statement game, I would have had him top 3. But obviously he wasn't able to go, or he was, but they really didn't play him, and they have good backup in Donovan Edwards, so they didn't have to worry about rushing him. So yeah, I guess I'll be boring and go with the same top 3 as you guys. So with that, let's transition in to our weekly NFL picks. Stock, you pulling them up?
Yep.
Before we get into the picks, we'll just do a few rapid fire topics.
That boy Spence, way to forget to fill out the Jags-Lions game.
Yeah, it's still up in the air. Yeah, so I guess we'll start off. How many teams can win the Super Bowl and list them, and then just, I guess, move it on to the next.
So we're all in agreement the Chiefs can. The Eagles obviously can. I think those are the 2 front runners in both conferences, at least in my mind. Cowboys can. 49ers can.
Bills
can.
Bills can.
Bengals, I think, can. I believe in them.
I think Dolphins can.
Who?
Dolphins.
Yep, Dolphins can.
And then what about the Vikings?
No. I'm not a believer in the Vikings. I'm just not.
Wait, weren't you saying they were the second best NFC team a few weeks ago over the Cowboys?
Yeah, and then no, because last
Well, yeah, but then what happened against the Cowboys, Spencer?
yeah, well, I didn't. I said that at one point, but then I've also said going into last week I didn't have them in my top 5 NFC teams, which you thought was crazy, and I was proven
Wait,
wrong.
a team with the 32nd dead last pass defense in the NFL and their Swiss cheese offensive line just does not scream Super Bowl team to me.
Look, my
Vikings.
other thing too, like I don't think they can win it, but I think they can get there. I still think the Bucks can get there because of what their schedule is going to be. Dude, they're going to go like Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, and then like Jimmy Garoppolo.
Nah.
The thing they're not going to win a Super Bowl with Todd Bowles as their head coach. I can tell
No,
you that.
I don't
as a
think they.
Jets,
I don't
as
think
a
they
Jets
can win
fan.
it, but I think they could get there.
Okay. I'll throw out one more. Can the Ravens?
Look,
No,
they've been up.
I can't see them beating some of those other AFC teams we mentioned.
I think they can, but I think they can, but I don't know.
It's so tough for me because they've been up by at least 9 points in every game this year. Like that is crazy. Up until last week, it had been 10, and then they only got up 9 on the Jags last week. But
Yeah.
they've choked what? They're now what? 6-5,
7-4.
7-4. So that means they've choked 4 of them. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you don't get up 10 on every NFL team and not be capable of beating anybody.
Yeah, I definitely think they can. I mean, yeah, I just think they've let their guard down a few times. I trust their defense more than the likes of like the Dolphins, obviously. Which like I would take a Ravens Dolphins rematch any day of the week in the playoffs. I think the AFC side of the playoffs is going to be.
I think every game will be intriguing.
Sure.
Every single one of them.
And it's unfortunate the Titans are going to get a home game because the AFC South is by far the worst.
I'm hoping. I mean, if the Jets end up winning the AFC somehow, that'd be cool. But I'm kind of hoping for that Jets Titans matchup that would happen if the season ended right now. I like how the Jets match up in that a lot.
So right now, I think you got Chiefs, Dolphins, Titans, Ravens as the division winners. I think you switch the Dolphins and Bills. Still think the Bills win the conference. And then just from a neutral fan perspective, Bengals, I would like making it in. And then, Aaron, I'm sorry. I guess I'll preface it with this: if Mike White continues to play well, I wouldn't mind watching the Jets in the playoffs. But otherwise, I'd like to see Chargers just because they're still fun to watch with Eckler and Jay Herbo and those receivers.
Well, I can tell you that the Jets are facing bottom half pass defenses the rest of the year, so Mike White might legitimately be eating the rest of the season. We'll see. Verdict's out, but if he can just do what he did against the Bears against some of these defenses, the Jets will be in a good spot.
They're not going to make the playoffs, 4-7, but would the Browns be a Super Bowl contender with Watson if they were in the playoffs right now?
Like if they were like 6-5 and in the hunt?
No.
Yeah.
I'd have to see how Watson looks.
Too much of a dark cloud hanging over him right now, too. I just don't. There's too much going on off the field. And even with Watson, I don't think the Browns are in that tier of teams.
I got to see what Watson would look like because I mean, last time we saw him play, which is 2 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
He was a top 5 quarterback. And look, like they have the talent. If he's a top 5 quarterback, I'm gonna say yes. They could win a Super Bowl. Like you pair a top 5 quarterback with Nick Chubb, and then you've got Amari Cooper, who's been really good. Donovan Peoples-Jones has come on. Njoku's solid. They've got a really good offensive line. They've got an above-average defense. Look, I think Myles Garrett's overrated, but he's still one of the top 5 pass rushers in football. Yeah, I think they could be, but like it won't be till next year, obviously. Plus, I don't know how Watson's going to look. He hasn't played football in 2 years.
Even if Watson had been playing this entire season, I don't think they'd be a Super Bowl contender this year. But next year, I think it's possible. But I just don't see them being a contender no matter what this year.
Speaking of, Watson returns this week against his former team, the Texans. Obviously, the NFL scripted it. Would they rule him out? 11 games or 12 games? Suspended
11.
him?
11 because they had the bye week too. Yeah, who gets suspended for 11 games? Let's be real.
Yeah, like it's either 10 or 12. Like 11 is just such a weird number.
He gets suspended an even amount of games. Yeah. Which, hey, props to the NFL. I guess it'll draw me in. That's for sure. It's an interesting slate of games this weekend. Before we get into the picks, Zach Wilson. Do you guys think he's done? Yeah, I don't think he's done necessarily. Maybe for the season if Mike White continues to perform, but he'll still get another chance, I think.
You can't be a number 2 pick and not get another chance. And like honestly, the problems he has are so fixable. It just comes down to actually fixing them, and does he have the capability to fix them? Because he still has all the talent in the world. It's purely fundamental stuff that he is not grasping, just throwing off of his back foot. He doesn't live to play another down. It's all really coachable stuff. So the ball is truly in his court for how his NFL career is going to look, because it is all fixable. All the stuff that he needs to do is fixable.
Is his career starting in the NFL done? No. Is his career in New York done? I think potentially. I think
it's likely. I think the Jets, unless Mike White looks so good he's a starter next year, they're going to be taking care of things in the offseason via free agency or trade. That's what I think.
Yeah, agreed. That's what I think he's done in New York. I think maybe a team that, let's see, like a team.
The Panthers.
Yeah. Look, like they're eventually gonna have to draft somebody, but like, yeah, they could take a year on Zach Wilson, and if he's just that bad, they're gonna be awful. Then they draft Caleb Williams. See how that goes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, they drafted Matt Corral.
Yeah, but like he's a 4th round pick.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. I mean, I think he's got. I wouldn't be shocked if he was never like a full-time, if he never went into a season being the starter ever again. I wouldn't be too shocked. But because he's a number 2 overall pick, I think he could still get another shot.
All righty, we'll take a quick break and then come back and do our weekly segments as well as our 5 weekly games. Now getting into our weekly picks, Stefan will bring the picks back up. Stock got a 3-game lead on me. I've got a 3-game lead on Aaron. Yeah, Stock's also got the lead on Lock of the Weeks. 69-50, 66-53, 63-56. Pretty good overall records. I think we've already talked about it. I think this is the most intriguing slate of games this week. A lot of good games, interesting even to watch. Start with Dolphins 49ers. You guys both picked Dolphins. I picked 49ers. I need to make up a game on Stock somewhere. But also I feel like this is just a coin flip game at home. Yeah. The one reason I'm not confident in this is CMC not practicing or limited in practice with knee soreness. And Elijah Mitchell just got hurt again, so he's out 2 months, I think.
Yeah, 6 to 8 weeks.
So he might be done for the year. So if CMC can't go, they obviously trade away Jeff Wilson. I would pick the Dolphins, but if CMC can go, I'd lean towards the 49ers. I think the most interesting matchup here is Mike McDaniel versus former team in that 49ers defense. Nobody's really been able to figure out Tua and Tyreek and Waddle and slow them down. But yeah, this is a fascinating matchup. Yeah. Stock?
Yeah, fascinating game. Coin flip. Just like I was flying through picks and my gut and fingers just started typing Dolphins, so I went with it. They haven't lost with Tua when he's finished a game. They're 8-0. So like, I mean, I kind of like the pick, but I mean it's tough. Like we said, it's a coin flip game. Could be a Super Bowl preview. Who knows? Both these teams definitely could get to the Super Bowl. I think it'll be a super entertaining game to watch, though.
Yeah, I like the matchup of McDaniel against the 49ers a lot. They pretty much have kept the same, no matter who the defensive coordinator has been, they've had the same system there for several years now. So he's very familiar. The Dolphins have an advantage offensively for sure. It's going to come down to whether or not the 49ers defense can stop them. And I trust McDaniel to have the game plan against his former team that gets the Dolphins a dub.
So those were two of the teams that we listed as teams that could win the Super Bowl. Two more face off this week. You got Chiefs at Bengals, rematch of the AFC Championship in Cincinnati. Yeah, this is a phenomenal game. I think Bengals start off the season slow, but they've bounced back. I think we know what the Chiefs are. I think they're the favorites in the AFC. I think this game will tell us more about the Bengals. Tell us if they're again legit Super Bowl contenders. At home, I took the Bengals. Yeah, if Jamar Chase is expected to be back, so perfect timing for that. Not overly confident in this one, but yeah. Aaron?
The main thing for me is you're just not going to catch me picking against the Chiefs right now. I'm not. I think the Bengals could win, but I'm not going to pick against the Chiefs. There might be a bit of a mismatch in the running game. Bengals definitely have a better running game than the Chiefs, but Mahomes is Mahomes. Yeah, I'm picking Kansas City.
Yeah, similar to Aaron, you're not going to see me picking against the Chiefs this week, or probably for the rest of the season until maybe the playoffs. Would I be shocked if the Bengals won? No. There's already trash talk going on Instagram for this game. Justin Reed was going at saying he was going to like help lock down Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase basically said, let's throw money on it. So I think that pretty much confirms he's going to play this week. Really interesting game. I wish one of these two games got flexed to Sunday night and it's over Colts Cowboys because they're both at 325. So it's going to be tough to like, I want to watch like the entire game for both these games. And I only have one TV at school. So it's kind of tough.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know when people aren't going to learn, specifically defenders, when to stop providing bulletin board material days before facing off against an elite opponent like Jamar Chase. So I don't know what the point in that from Justin Reed is. I'll slam Jamar Chase going for triple digits in his return. Yeah, that made me more confident in my Bengals pick. But we'll move on to the next game. We got Jets at Vikings, two playoff teams. Aaron will be at the game, Jets fan. Mike White looked very good in his start last week. We want Vikings across the board. Aaron, what do you got to say?
First of all, I think Sauce against Justin Jefferson is an incredible matchup. I expect to see DJ Reed on him too, but Sauce is the big name, so that's what people are going to focus on. Not like Justin Reed. Sauce has been giving Jefferson a lot of respect this week. I haven't seen if Jefferson has said anything, but I know everyone's just got their eye on that matchup. The Vikings have the 32nd ranked pass defense in the NFL. They're dead last. The Bears definitely have the worst defense right now, but for the full season, the Vikings are ranked 32nd in pass defense. So Mike White has the potential to go off again. Michael Carter might not be playing, so the Jets would be down to Ty Johnson and Bam Knight at running back because James Robinson has seemed like a no-go. At least he was this past week. Bam Knight looks really good against the Bears, so I'm not too concerned there. Vikings having a horrendous interior offensive line. You got Quinton Williams and Sheldon Rankins lined up across from that. I feel good there. Really, I'm taking the Vikings because they're at home, and I do think they have a lot more talent than the Jets on the offensive side of the ball. I think the Jets have way more talent on the defensive side of the ball, but Vegas says the Vikings favored by 3. That means it's a wash at a neutral site. It's a pick 'em. I do think the Jets match up well, actually really well. I don't want to talk too much about how well I think the Jets match up with the Vikings, but I'm taking the Vikings because they're at home. I will be at that one. So, and this is the first meaningful Jets game I've ever gone to in my life, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I think it'll be a fun one. There's a lot of really good matchups on paper on both sides of the ball in this game, and I think it should be a fun one overall.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. Taking the Vikings. Extra rest, I think, will help.
That's you just reminded me. Okay, 6 times this season over the course of 17 weeks, it's either 6 or 7 times that the Jets face a team on extra rest. That is terrible scheduling by the NFL. Okay, I got that out of the way. You can go ahead again.
So I mean, I like the Vikings. I think it'll be a good game. Be interesting to see Mike White.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm distracted.
Same.
This game is taking about 15 minutes.
Tar Heels are on, and they forget how to act professional on a podcast. Come on.
Hey, they're up 3-2 to start the game. Okay. Caleb Love's baked into 3.
Okay. So yeah, what's our next game? Commanders against the Giants. I feel like I had something. Oh, Aaron. So last week I saw James Robinson as a healthy scratch. Is he hurt or is he a healthy scratch again this weekend?
I think he'll be a healthy scratch again this weekend because Bam Knight looks so good. And the thing is, people are going to probably trash on the Jets for trading an extra 5th-round pick for James Robinson. The thing is, running backs injuries happen so often that I'm not going to complain about having James Robinson on the roster when the next inevitable running back injury happens. And honestly, it's a credit to Bam Knight that I don't know if you guys are familiar with him since he went to NC State, but he looked really good in that last game. He looked really good in the preseason. I think it's a credit to him more so than it is a knock on Robinson. And the Jets really like Ty Johnson in the receiving game. He also had like a 35-yard touchdown last week, so I think that's why he plays over Robinson. So yeah, I would still like having Robinson on the roster. I'm not upset about the trade. I just think Bam Knight won that job over him with Breece Hall and now Michael Carter being hurt.
Yeah, quite. I mean, at this point, no offense to the Jets running backs, but if you're James Robinson and you can't even get a helmet with Bam Knight and Ty Johnson, I'm not sure he'll be in the league much longer, which is quite unfortunate after the start of his career. I think that Achilles just got rid of any kind of burst he had. Quite the downfall too, because at the start of the season, people were like, "Wow, he's bouncing back tremendously." He had a few long touchdowns, and then ETN took over the role and he got traded. But let's move into NFC East matchup. Commanders at Giants. Brian Dable, one of the favorites to win Coach of the Year right now, leading the Giants. You guys took Commanders. Commanders playing really well under Taylor Heineke. And when Carson Wentz is healthy, I assume they're going to stick with Heineke because he's got him back in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, Wentz is healthy. They already said they're sticking with Heineke.
Good. Yeah, because he's getting McLaurin involved, which is needed. Their defense is playing much better than it was early in the season as well. They're a really solid team, but they travel to MetLife to face the Giants. You guys pick Commanders. I just pick Giants. In these close divisional matchups, obviously, I always say home matters. I'm not confident in it just because the Giants receivers are a mess. Obviously, traded away Tony. Wando Robinson's out for the year, and then Galladay's horrible. So I'm not too confident in this one, but I think this will be a Saquon game. Low scoring overall. I'd take Giants at home.
I think it's interesting how both of these teams don't have a tremendous amount of talent, and they've just been able to grind out wins repeatedly. I will say right now, the Commanders probably have better talent offensively than the Giants do. I mean, the Giants have Saquon, and that's it. Because of that, I like the Commanders in this matchup. I just think they have more people who are a threat on their team. And I just think they're hot right now. Giants are coming off a loss. It was against the Cowboys, who were the better team, but the Commanders are so hot right now with Taylor Heineke that I'm just picking them to keep it rolling.
Yeah, I'm with the Commanders. Giants have struggled the last couple of weeks. I think teams have just said, okay, somebody other than Saquon beat us. And until they can prove it, I don't think they're going to be able to win. So I like the Commanders this week.
I think OBJ, before we move into the next game, OBJ, I mean, he's been linked to several teams throughout the season. I think Von Miller today said that OBJ is supposedly down to the Cowboys and the Bills, which, if you're a Giants fan, the Cowboys would hurt a lot. Just having him be a Giants legend and then go there. And they could use him. I mean, he's not going to be what he was 5 years ago, but he would step in and he'd be their number one immediately. They need someone to throw to. So he'd be a big help as they're still trying to look to make the playoffs. But heading into the last game. What was the last game, Stefan? Titans-Eagles?
Yeah.
Titans at Eagles, so we picked Eagles across the board. Eagles coming off that win on Sunday Night Football. Ended up being a really fun game to watch at Lambeau Field. Titans, I think, over the past few years, I mean, Mike Vrabel's turned into a top 5 coach in the NFL, in my opinion. I mean, get rid of A.J. Brown. There's no reason they should be where they're at right now, 7-4, with the talent that they have, especially with Treylon Burks out for most of the year. But props to him. A.J. Brown plays his former team. I got him going for 100 and the Eagles winning.
Going off your point, Spencer, I do think Vrabel is one of the top coaches in the NFL, but it also helps that the AFC South is disgusting. I think that's a big part of why the Titans are where they're at. That being said, I'm also taking the Eagles in this one. I think A.J. Brown goes off for sure. I think it's not even debatable if A.J. Brown goes off. I feel really good about the Eagles in this one. It kind of is unfortunate that there's this big storyline of, A.J. Brown playing his former team, and I think it has potential to just not be a very good game at all. I think it could get out of hand if the Eagles show up to play.
I got the Eagles. I think it'll be a close game just because of the style the Titans play. Run the ball control. Tannehill's not going to turn the ball over, which I think is big. But I think Jordan Davis is back this week. He's either back this week or next week. And when he's been healthy, you haven't been able to run the ball on the Eagles. So I'm really intrigued by that matchup. Derrick Henry against the Eagles front seven. But Eagles offense is just too good. Titans' weakness is the secondary. And so A.J. Brown, I think, could feast, especially in a rematch. So that's where I'm at with that.
I think even if Davis can't go. I mean, they still got Ndamukong Suh. They got Linval Joseph, I think. Their defensive line depth is crazy. So, yeah, that'll be that'll be the main thing to watch there in that game. Before we head out, you guys got any talking out their ass segments?
You can check our World Cup episode to see how Greg Berhalter was subbing out of his ass. But I don't really have a talking out of their ass, I don't think. I mean, anytime you turn on ESPN and they're talking about TCU, there's your talking out of your ass.
Mine is Broncos media has resorted to draft day comparisons because if you've seen the movie Draft Day, Bo Callahan, people don't show up to his birthday party. Well, it's a story now that only half the Broncos team showed up to Russell Wilson's birthday party yesterday, which I mean, it's real life. Like, you're not going to get 53 guys there, but it's just the Broncos are such a mess that it's a storyline. So that's where we're at. And they're comparing it to a movie. So, yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have any. We mentioned the World Cup episode. Iran trying to get the U.S. banned would definitely qualify as talking out their ass. It wouldn't be specific talking, but Ronaldo would be another. Just adamant on the fact that his head nicked the ball.
Scoring a goal out of his ass.
Yeah. Which it doesn't matter, bro. Your team scored a goal. So, yeah, those would be my only two. Whose turn is it for Throwback Legend of the Week?
I think it's mine.
All right. You got one?
Yeah,
on the
since I'm watching Carolina basketball in the background right now, we'll stick with the Carolina Throwback Legend, and we'll go with my favorite player of all time, Marcus Page. Especially against watching them play Indiana reminds me of the Sweet 16 game the year they lost the title to Villanova. Page had like 16 of Carolina's first 18 points, came out and hit 4 straight threes, start the game. Was an All-American his sophomore year, and then kind of battled injuries junior and senior year, but I love the kid. Favorite Tar Heel ever. Spence kind of thinks he's slightly overrated, but
And he has an Iowa connection.
True, that as well.
Yeah. Stock and I got his autograph. There's a picture. Stephen, do you know the picture? Bro. So we went to Iowa Energy, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I think they were the T-Wolves at the time still.
So I don't know if you remember Wes Washpin, Aaron.
Yeah, I think so.
Played for UNI. I think he had a flat top.
Yep.
But,
He number 11.
Yeah. So we went down and we're staying in line to get Marcus Page's autograph. Stefan got it. No worries. He got a good picture with Marcus. Marcus poses. I get up to him and he's signing my hat. And I get the picture back. They're like, "Oh, we got a picture of you guys." I look, and Marcus isn't even. He's not even thinking about looking into the camera. He's looking right at Wes Washpin to his left, having a conversation with him as I'm cheesing. So might have played a role in him not being my favorite Tar Heel. Sorry, Marcus, but
I mean, JB was your favorite before he.
Yeah, I know. I'm just playing, which is kind of weird. You would think I would definitely have him be my favorite, being from Iowa, but yeah. All right, that'll do it.
No Harrison Barnes.
No, I don't know. I feel like I just lean towards the guards. And not to say like he didn't. I mean, he still averaged 16 a game or something.
I think he averaged like 19 his sophomore year, but
Had
yeah.
some favorite performances, including against Clemson, but I don't know. I just lean towards the guards, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
But that'll do it for this week's episode of the 515 Sports Pod. Be sure to check out our World Cup edition. We'll be doing 2 episodes again next week, a World Cup one, and then our general NFL, college football, everything else sports one. So follow us on Twitter at the 515 Sports Pod. Like and subscribe to our YouTube. See you guys next week.